warrior. What a day here in New York City. What a great day for not only New York City, but also around our country. Welcome. I'm sure by now you've heard all about, let me think. What's that headline? Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, PD, and also, which I didn't realize until I saw the indictment today, Love. You know, his real name is Sean Love Combs. A couple of things I want to bring to your attention about all of this, and that is a couple of ideas I have. Now, this is not proof, but I'm thinking, why would Sean Combs voluntarily, as his attorney stated, and by the way, if you saw that statement outside of the courthouse, that attorney had a nerve. He was very dismissive. He was very nonchalant. We are talking about horrible physical abuses, violations of people, not only women and reported minors, which we haven't even gotten to yet, men, boys, women, girls, everybody. There are reports of a lot of teens, but we haven't touched upon that yet. But why this is so important, I was thinking, why would he voluntarily, is he that brazen and brash that he would just parade around New York City, as I like to say, go yesterday and hang out on the Great Lawn in Central Park where families hang out, people sunbathe, people have picnics, people throw balls. He's just hanging out, marching around, taking these selfies. Maybe that was orchestrated. I saw people with him with these shopping bags from Bergdorf Goodman. And that's a very expensive luxury, I guess, department store, you would call it, right on 59th and 5th. And just like he didn't have a care in the world. I want to know if I'm coming in, if people can hear me, because I don't see any comments. So I think I'm coming in. So please let me know if you can hear me. And, Edward says swag bag. I guess you can hear me. But I want to talk about, here's what I was thinking. Now, let's see if you agree with me on this or disagree. There were many rumors, innuendo, again, so no proof, right? We like to base things on proof. Thank you, Edward, 5x5. Janice, I hear you. Thank you. Anthony, hi, Mrs. L. George in Texas, I can hear you, Mrs. L. Good. All right, let me get on with this story, what I think. So there were stories. There were rumblings. Remember, I've been hearing about Sean Combs. I like to call him Sean Combs, not all those other names. For decades, I started out in the music business after college. Sean Combs started out in actually late 80s into early 90s. He's 54 years old now. Fast forward, there were rumblings in the last few decades that he was an FBI informant. Now, I don't have proof. I'm just saying what I heard many times. And that would make sense because why did it take so long to arrest him? Why? Why, when so many people are complicit? Thanks, Jimmy. Great job. Frederick, greetings. Mrs. L, thank you. Iris, waving. Marco, fear you. Okay. Whatever, Marco. Why would he be allowed? Because remember, so many people are complicit. Everybody around him, his entourage, and you know what this is all about. People say, well, why would they watch this and allow this? Money, influence, celebrity. Everybody loves to hang around a celebrity and be part of the scene. And he always traveled with an entourage. And so I'm thinking, that FBI informant thing, maybe that's why. Those rumblings of he was ratting out other rappers with, who were involved with drugs and things of that nature. Maybe that's why. Because New York City, he was even quoted. There was a quote saying, Diddy, and this was a couple of days ago, Diddy owns the city. We had so many things we were hearing underneath for decades now about Sean Combs, and nothing ever happened. And if we did hear something about him, like that 1999 gun case where he was reported to be the shooter in his club he was at, I believe it was on 41st Street, Crypto Domini. Thank you. And he and J-Lo jumped in a car and ran up 8th Avenue and got away with it. And go back to the Tupac, go back to the Biggie Smalls, go back to all of that. East Coast rap, West Coast rap. Now think back if you're old enough to think back about that. And always rumblings that he had Tupac taken out. Again, we don't have the proof. But doesn't that make sense? And I also think, and this is my opinion, again, I have no proof. Of course, he came here voluntarily because I think perhaps maybe he was coming here. His lawyer states he flew here voluntarily. He wants to make himself available to the courts. Really? Is that because he was an FBI informant and thought nothing would happen to him? And perhaps he was double crossed when they arrested him? Doesn't that make sense? Think about it. Aunt Jemima says, good evening. And TL says, I heard that too, right? So we have to wait. We're always based on facts and truth and all that. But my biggest fear is if this was allowed to go on for so long, everybody from hotel workers to car drivers to women, there are a lot of women in this sex trafficking business that because they can cozy up to the girls, they're more of the mother figure, the sister figure, and ensnare them into this horror. And what you have to remember is everybody's saying sex workers and prostitutes. And yes, there were some of those at these freak offs, right? I mean, that should have been a clue right there. Freak offs over the years that they put out, because I've been hearing about it for years. They put out almost casting calls and would fly girls and women in. I want to keep saying girls and boys. We have to get to that because nobody really is talking about minors right now. Hopefully we will be as this unravels. But casting calls, and I think about it again. So they're not prostitutes. They're not sex workers. They're vulnerable. They're living in poverty. They're living in the middle of nowhere. They see something, hear something, and they're told, we'll fly you to New York, we'll fly you to Miami, LA, the Hamptons. We'll pay for your car service. We will pay for you to have a glamorous outfit. You will rub elbows with people in the music biz and other celebrities. And and I know, right, that's it. People just love to get involved in that. And you're talking about vulnerable young people. And once they get to these parties, they can't get out. They are drugged. They are plied with alcohol, all kinds of horrible violations. And you might say, why don't they run away? Well, if you're in a house, for instance, in the middle of some mansion in Miami or out in the Hamptons, you're drugged and you're 17 or 19, where are you going? And you're scared because you're also threatened that if you run anywhere, you can't go anywhere. Nobody will believe you. That's a big one. Nobody will believe you. And remember, there were a lot of these goons, thugs working with Sean Combs. Nick Nightingale brings up a good point. He mentions Justin Bieber. Again, whispers always, way before any of this broke, about Usher, who lived with Sean Combs when he was 13 years old. Where were his parents? Who knows what he endured or saw? The same with Justin Bieber. Facebook Live is not performing alternate links. That's from LJ. Maybe you check that for me, the Facebook. We're checking that now. Thank you. Roz Bin says, looking good as always, warrior lady, love what you do. Thank you. I wish you didn't love what I do. I wish I didn't do what I have to do. But if I don't do it, who's going to do it? Who's going to talk about kids? Who's going to talk about these issues in a different light than you're hearing in the mainstream cable news, whatever you're hearing? The good news is for today that Sean Combs, and I was doing an interview early with Nancy Grace about all of this. Again, I'll be on tomorrow because this is a multi-part unfolding story. Finally, for victims and survivors of this sex trafficking. First, understand, I want to make it clear, sex trafficking. Do you understand what that is? Thank you, George Lenz. Does this throw off the interest in Epstein, Lynn? Well, let me tell you, George, I'm getting to that. I am afraid. What interest in Epstein? Because I'm not hearing anything about Epstein. That story came, that story went, and in my opinion, we never got to the bottom of it. We had one person arrested, Ghislaine Maxwell, and I'm sure she will get out of prison, not in the too distant future, and she will be just disappear into society, and that's the end of that, right? Did we really get the answers in that? No, we did not. And my biggest fear is that this will turn into that story, like that person, what happened. And all of these victims who came forward with that crime then signed on with lawyers for action lawsuits, and they just clammed up. They just aren't going to speak when there's money on the line. We never got to the bottom of that case. And I am afraid this could potentially be the same thing. But there's so many tentacles here we have to talk about. First of all, let's see. Come on, folks, hit the like button. You know, Darlene, I should be better at that. I'm still getting my footing a little bit. I've been so busy. I can't do these live chats on a regular basis. But yes, please hit the like button. Please become a member of Lynn's Warriors. Find that tab. Please hit the little bell so you'll be notified of, I have a video up now. I think it may have just switched to public, about child brides in the United States that we're fighting so hard because 37 states are allowing children to get married. That's for another program, so I'm going to leave that. But get involved, because if we don't talk about it, if we don't share this information, if we don't know what's going on, we can help nobody. And remember, helping starts with yourself and your family unit and then your community. That is good enough, because you're not going to solve our country's problems or the world problems. Believe you me, we're not stopping human trafficking. We're not stopping sexual exploitation, but we will keep talking about it. But let's stick, my brain goes all over so many different things with this Sean Combs. So I really think when he showed up back to his hotel last night, he just fully did not expect to get arrested. And he never thought he would get arrested because he's been providing evidence on other rappers, other people, and who were at these white parties, these freak-offs that went on for days. And women and girls, men and boys, we got to keep talking about that because nobody else is, violently abused. How many ended up in hospitals? Or maybe they had a doctor on call. They kept them there so nobody would know, with these IV drips. It's hitting me now, talking about this all day, doing interviews, receiving notices from actual victims, basically, who said to me, somebody texted me earlier and said, I told you so, because this about Sean Combs has been going around forever. And I could never, first of all, if you don't have proof, you can't do anything. So justice must be served. Law enforcement must arrest him. And they indeed did that. And I think he was very surprised about his arrest. Didn't expect it. And sure, he's a flight risk. He was off in, right before they raided his two homes in March. He claims he was taking, he claims he was taking his two daughters on spring break to the Bahamas. But the feds stopped him. They did not allow that. So he is definitely a flight risk. We've got Russell Simmons somewhere floating around Bali wearing a dress. He escaped. There were rumblings about him, I want to say about 3, 4, 5 years ago, and all of a sudden he ended up in Bali. All Alone Prepper says, could someone put a hit on him so they took him into custody early? Yes. Yes. And also, no. I'd be more worried about who attended those white parties, who was at those freak out parties, because we know there are video evidence. It was said in court today that Sean Combs filmed these sexual exploitation, these attacks, these violations. And you know where my mind goes when I hear video? It goes to, what did he do with the video? Now, two things. The biggest money makers right now, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and extortion. That's it. Bigger than the drug trade. I don't care what you read. I am telling you, that is what it is. And also, how do you afford, and from, I say this about a lot of people when they have multiple homes, multiple cars, multiple staffs. How do you afford? Sean Combs was not making millions upon millions upon millions with his music lately. And I know he had these other business ventures. He had the liquor and the clothing line and represented other artists, but that hasn't been going on for a while. So how do you have these $70 million mansions and multi-million dollar mansions? And we're not talking 2 million, we're talking 50, 70 million in Miami, and drive around in Rolls Royces, and your sons have multiple cars. Where does that money come from? And my mind goes to sex trafficking, uploading it onto porn sites, perhaps controlling porn sites, selling, reselling. I guarantee, I bet you, I'm going to say this again, I don't have the proof, that a lot of these victims are out there online on multiple sites being re-victimized every minute, every hour, every single day. And I want to say that is what makes the money now. Port Shitter says some big money. Yes, it's always, when people say, why does this happen? Well, it's always about money. Somebody asked me today, why did the staff, the entourage, everybody, whether it was room service, whether it was cleaning people, drivers, private planes, why did they saw this? Obviously, they saw people brutalized. Why did they allow it? Because money. All Alone Prepper says the online black media is going off about the gay parties, and that disappeared somewhere. Gay parties with major black male stars all recorded. We heard Shannon Sharp. We've heard over the years behind the scenes things that were going on. That's why there were a lot of boys involved and young men. And we have to remember, right now, I believe there are only 11 cases that have come forward. I believe it's 10 women and 1 male. Most people who are victims of this violent assault. Now, remember, if you're flying in from, now I'm just saying this as an example, I don't know, you're flying in from New Mexico and you're 17 years old and you're picked up in a limo and you're given this goodie bag, full of, I don't know, and gift cards and cosmetics, and we're going to take you shopping. I'm sure there was a woman involved who took all the girls and women shopping, and a man for the men and boys to get these outfits and things like that. I'm sure the houses, we know, because it was part of the indictment, these hotel rooms were fully stocked with things when people arrived. You think you're partying. Think of a 17-year-old, think of a 27-year-old, again, taken by celebrity, music business, Sean Combs, luxury, perceived luxury. And you don't ever want to talk about this again, because many, many victims, survivors of sex trafficking, of abuse, want to forget about it. So we've only heard about 11. I am sure there are hundreds, because hundreds over the decades attended these parties. They are afraid. The other thing is, a common thing is, I will say, speak up, speak out. They do not. They're afraid for their lives. They want to forget it. They're afraid for their families. They may have children now. They're embarrassed. They just don't want to know about it, right? But I am sure with today, I don't hear anybody sticking up for Sean Combs. Yes, Nick says, been happening in Hollywood for decades. I know a bunch of 60-year-olds that fall for that. Yes, you're right, Stasia. But I'm trying to keep it, because everything with a minor is illegal. Any of this is illegal. But the importance, and I'm not hearing enough today about what was reported to be always we heard about underage, right? With that other person, with that other big case, we always heard about underage, yet we never really got to that point. We never talked about that, right? So as Michael Savage used to say, Holly Weird has been doing this stuff for decades. Okay, we know that. We're not talking about Hollywood right now. We're talking about the success of today, the arrest of Sean Combs, and also the success of not granting him bail, even though he offered $50 million, his mother's house. The judge said no. That is good, because you know why? It shows these victims justice may be served. Most of them think there's a lot of gaslighting that goes on with vulnerable people. You're worth nothing. You have no voice. You have no money to fight us. You'll never have a lawyer. We're in control. We got the power. Shut up. Go away. Never open your mouth. Guns twirling at you. We know where you live. All that stuff. So at least they know. Because think about a 17-year-old, I use as an example, how that ruins your life, how you're wide-eyed and wide-eyed and you show up and you're so naive. And then you're brutally violated. And you wake up perhaps after 3 days of being drugged and who knows what. And who knows what goes on with your body. The physical abuse, what kind of health care that may endure. We don't talk about that a lot, right? And also there's rumors of death, arson, blowing up of cars. I also say perhaps the burning of evidence. A lot going on here. So it's a good day to talk about this. TL says he's a flight risk. He could leave and go to Bali. That's good. He was denied bail. I think it's good. I really think he was double crossed because I think he came to New York, as stated by his lawyer. I came to work with the court. It's like he doesn't have a care in the world. Out and about, showing everybody lots of pictures, selfies, whether orchestrated or not. It was just not a good visual, in my opinion. And then he's walking back in the hotel, which is fairly close to where we live right here. They arrested him. I think that was the plan. I think he got double-crossed. Jeffrey Gold, he needs a new lawyer. Yeah, that guy was, in my opinion, so dismissive of the statement I heard him give and then say, I got to go. Oh, regarding Cassie, which is the woman in the video we've all seen that kind of started all this drag through the hotel hallway. And he was in a towel and it looked like socks. And he's pulling her by the hair and knocking her down. And she's cowering. That was a 10-year relationship. You have to understand the mindset of a sex trafficking victim. You have to understand what sex trafficking is. It is not somebody doing, for the most part, something of free will. It is a vulnerable person coerced, forced, fraud is involved. It's more of a broad statement. It's not just always, we use this as an example because so many times people say to me, it's that white van. It's many things. It's OnlyFans on your phone. It's Snapchat on your computer. So much trafficking is going on. And this was a form of trafficking. He was flying women, all people. I'm going to keep saying it, girls, boys, and men also. Across state lines, transnational crime, and I think that was mentioned today, flying in from other countries. We've had reports. That is human trafficking 101. So let's look at some of the comments. Would the government double cross? I'm shocked. Shocked, I say. Now, Diane, in this case, it worked well, if that's what indeed happened. So I'm all for it. Maybe your husband can replace the lawyer. Now, Jeffrey, my husband is brilliant and smart and wins every case, I'm going to say. The work we do, we can't get done if we're going to be out in the public like that. That's all I'm going to say. We need to be behind the scenes doing what we do, talking about things. But who would want to be Sean Combs' lawyer? I personally would have a hard time with that because I wouldn't want my husband representing him, knowing all of these things, knowing victims who told me years ago the rap world equals the sex trafficking world, knowing that he on the street had this nickname of Pimp Daddy. And we're talking in the 90s. So we're going back. Mr. L made a guest appearance. Yes, you saw his arm reach over and do something. Oh, I know it was sarcasm. I understand. I'm just saying, I'm reading some comments. Combs' lawyer, attention hound. I don't know if he's an attention hound. I think his impression, I don't know anything about him. I didn't really research him yet. I've been busy today. I don't know. I want to look up. I'm not familiar with his name. I never saw him before in the media. That doesn't mean he hasn't been there. I just haven't seen him. I never heard about him. I want to do a little research on his firm. I saw something about district something. Again, I need to vet him a little better and do my research. But you know what? I heard his statement today, and that is good enough. It is that typical lawyer dismissing the victim. It is that typical disregard, not guilty. Now, I understand that's his lawyer. You're supposed to say that. But that statement should have been an airtight something, not that kind of head in the wind, dismissive, I gotta go. No good. No good. So what we have to do, thank you, James. Not sure if I'm dazzling, but I do have the fan on so I can get the 80s MTV video look ever so slightly with the hair blowing in the wind, but thank you. Kamala is the only one that may be able to help Diddy. I don't even want to talk about that. She's not going to be helping anybody. So let's move forward. This though, I was thinking about Sean Combs and
move the cursor to the left. See that little there?
Where do you want me to move the cursor?
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Nick Nightingale. I love the 80s. So do I. I didn't know I loved the 80s until about 4 years ago. And then I was starting to be like, I miss the 80s. I miss my heyday. We actually had it pretty good in the 80s and the 90s. But I digress. Sean Combs, his history is born in Harlem, which is part of New York City, uptown, and raised in Mount Vernon, which is kind of a suburb right outside of the city. And did you know that his father, Melvin, thank you, Lori Lewis. Thank you. His father, Melvin, served in the Air Force, and at age 33 was murdered right here in New York, Central Park West, because he was an associate of this Frank Lucas, who was this big, what was that movie? Jeez. Based on, he was the big drug dealer here in Harlem, New York, who cut out the middleman and was dealing directly with Asia to bring drugs directly into New York. American Gangster, that's it, played by Denzel Washington. I had to think back, everybody, for a minute. I did not know there was that association. So he's grown up, said he was an altar boy, I was reading, grew up Catholic, okay? Started very young and rose through the ranks of this music business, started with this Andre, I think it's Harrell, with this Uptown Records, and became an intern, maybe around 20. Then they had a falling out about 3 years later, and all of a sudden he started this Bad Boy Records. You know, Mary Kate Blige, Usher, and really rose quickly. You can't do that alone. That doesn't just happen. I'm here to say, you know, that old hard work pays off. It's about connections. It's about something. And so the rumblings started in the 90s about Sean Combs. The apple doesn't fall far, Karen says. That is true. No way. Was the movie Someone Beat Me to It? I don't know what that means. Porch Sitters, great music in the 80s. Yes, Porch Sitters. I'm listening to a lot of it now. I'm enjoying it. And isn't it funny how you remember all the songs? Like whatever, if you're in the 70s, you remember. I remember a lot of those songs, the 80s, a lot of those songs. I think I was so busy in the 90s with family and things like that. I don't think I remember a lot of music in the 90s. I do remember a period in the 90s. Does anybody else remember this? There were a lot of female singers. Like Madonna came out with that Ray of Light. That might have been later 90s. Cher did a great thing. Gloria Estefan. We had all these, Natalie Merchant. We had all these females because I was buying all the CDs and playing them over and over again. Yeah. Okay, but let's get back to Sean Combs. Clona's Steve Dreamkiller. Did I say it the right way? Clona's Steve. I'm not sure, so I apologize, Dreamkiller. Thank you very much. How deep does this go? Will we ever get to the bottom of this pit? Thank you for your brave and wonderful work. Well, thank you for empowering me and for supporting me, because you are enabling me to do this work. You are enabling me to be fearless. You are enabling me to share facts and realities that nobody else perhaps is sharing. You're enabling me to talk about survivors. I really want to put the emphasis on, as I told Nancy Grace today, what about these survivors? Because in front of the hotel today, people were showing up and laughing and smiling and taking selfies like this is a big celebrity thing. What about all those victims? We need to give them a voice. We need to give them moral support. We need to help them. How many lives were ruined? I mean, this is a family show, everybody, but did you read? Read that indictment, the things that were done. Disgusting. Coercion, fraud, innocent people. So I want to drive it home when we say prostitutes and sex workers. That may have been a group, but the majority of these people were just vulnerable young people that got taken in, who were promised love, who were promised, I'll help you with your music career. Now the women are going to start coming out, and I hope the men too. Men don't come out because they're so embarrassed, which we have to get over because right now in the United States, we have horrible crisis with sextortion, extorting teenage boys, primarily 14 to 17, online because the kids are exchanging these nude images. And once an image is out there, this is something I don't understand. Kids and people don't really understand. Once you put something online, it is there forever. I don't care. You delete it, you bleach bit it, whatever you're talking about. It is captured. It is captured. It is shared. It is somewhere in a cloud. It is there forever. Because kids have said to me, I deleted the image. No, it's already been. It's already been. And then once somebody has an image and shares it, another 10, another 20, another 500, and it goes on and on. But the boys, the teenage boys, are too embarrassed to go to their parents, whoever they're living with, because we have to talk about today in the United States, families are made up of grandparents now raising a lot of kids, aunts and uncles, all kinds of dynamics. They don't want to go to them and say, listen, this person wants $50 from me, or they're going to take this nude image and then they're going to send it to my school, send it to everybody I know. They have my whole list of contacts. We as adults have to say, really? Well, I'll tell you who's in charge here. And you have to know the steps to deal with that. Not yell at the kids, not delete. That is a crime scene, something like that. Somebody asking for money over a nude image. And you have to know the steps, what to do about that, and remain calm. That is a crime against a minor. So I want people to wake up to that. This is happening. The kids sharing these nude images. So much is happening online. We have to be that leader. We have to say, not my child, not my kid, not my grandchild. Let's show them. And so what? Nude image. Why don't you just say, that's not me, that's AI. Deny, deny, deny. So we got to keep talking about that. Without faces or names, the victims remain abstract to the general public. That's just it. And it's so ugly and dark. And who could blame anybody? Who wants to talk about all this? But you want to talk about it if it happens to you or your child, right? So we have to head it off and talk about it. Let me see if I missed anything. Nadia, he's been a pimp from the start. That's what we're hearing. Pimp Daddy was his name. How is 35 states allowed for minors to get married? Okay. First of all, it's 37 states. 13 states in the United States, 18 no exceptions. The other 37 are allowing it. However, I just put up a new interview with Genevieve Meyer, a child bride survivor who now is a strong advocate in her home state of Indiana and on the federal level. And there is something new because there's no federal law against this. It's a state by state issue. And that's just the way our Constitution, everything's been set up. And there is, though, some good news. Just in August, about 5 weeks ago, the Child Marriage Act of 2024, sponsored by Senator Dick Durbin and a couple of others, bipartisan, by the way, all of this is bipartisan work, was introduced. And we're going to be working on that because right now, Genevieve was explaining, and I urge all of you to watch this interview to understand what's going on, that it's horrific that a 50-year-old man could actually marry a 10-year-old girl in some states under the guise of the judge signs off on it, a parent signs off on it, but they're not marrying them. They're using this for the most part to traffic that child, right? We got to get a hold of this one. So please watch that, look at the links, understand what's going on. If your state's not involved, this is something I urge all of you. We like to have take actions. You want to know why your state will allow this. I mean, for instance, and I've talked about this forever, the state of California has no floor for child marriage. Now you might say, how that's impossible. But technically, a newborn baby could be married to an adult male. It's true. Hard to believe. But it's done for trafficking. So this is an issue. And Genevieve pointed out, there is not one federal study done in our government about any of this. Now, technically, this is a form of human trafficking, force, fraud, coercion. That is what I am fighting for with this. And we'll be doing more work with this. And also marrying somebody, and they take them usually across state lines as well. That is human trafficking. Why with this human trafficking work and these bills, this legislation, isn't this a part of all of that? Not one piece of federal legislation, but this is it. So we're going to be working and expanding upon that and talking about that. But could you believe that a newborn baby could be married? What judge would marry a baby to a man? And they're doing it. It's the craziest thing. But you know everything's upside down. And Diddy got caught still holding on to all that video evidence, because that goes with my thoughts of perhaps he was an FBI informant. And, you know, the egos get so big in entertainment, and everybody feeds into that. Not everybody, but mostly everybody. How I've seen this over the decades, over and over again, how great they are, how good they are, how they just want to be around this. And he just forgot he could get swept up in this. So we have to understand the video technically, legally, and I think everybody does understand, we have to have evidence based on evidence. So with that being said, we are going to keep our eye on all of this. I want everybody to get involved with this, to speak up about this, because this whole trafficking, exploitation is really, it has become so normalized. People are habituated. They just turn it off. Keep an eye on your kids. Hug your kids. The most important thing you can do is educate yourself, right? If you're going to put things out online, please vet them, research them. Don't just put anything out. Just don't retweet something unless, you really look at it. Be careful. The best thing you could do is open and honest communication with your children. Talk to them, because the internet is talking to them. The dangerous algorithms are talking to them and showing them things. We just in New York had another child subway surfing because he wanted to create, and killed, 15 years old. That's when you jump on top of a subway train and you ride it, and going out to what we call the outer boroughs, Bronx and Brooklyn. A lot of the trains go outside. They're not in the tunnels. They're going over tracks high up. And he hit his head on a beam, got killed. And he was doing this to create cool videos for his social media. Social media can be like an abusive boyfriend. Just think about that. Or girlfriend. So hug your kids, talk to your kids, let the information come from you. Don't believe everything you hear, constant over and over again. Let's hope that this case for Sean Combs, as we end up right now, will stick. Many people will go down with him, because again, he's not the only one. Who was going to those parties? Who was abusing the guests, all those people? Who would participate? It's disgusting, and I'm angry about it, and you should be too. So let me just check. I want to thank everybody. Let's see. Let me
go to the top right.
Oh, let's see. Right.
Go to star. Yeah, no, left.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Okay, everybody. Crypto Domini, thank you. George Lenz, thank you. We're going to see you soon in October, George. at the cutting room. Lori Lewis, always such a fan. Thank you so much. And I hope I'm saying it right. Clona or Clonas or Clona's Steve Dream Killer. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody for tuning in, listening up, being interested. Let's not, though, I want to leave you with this. Yes, Sean Combs. It's interesting. It's breaking. Hopefully, it's going to open up some justice for all these victims, perhaps change the landscape. But remember, there's always another Sean Combs right behind this Sean Combs. We have to keep an eye on everything 24/7, 365. Please, please always follow linswarriors.org. Everybody go get some rest. Tomorrow is another day, more stories, more headlines, and thank you. And remember, I want to leave you with this. Each and every day, go out and be a warrior. Good night.